I believe Joe Biden.
Stacey Abrams, who has been fighting very hard to become Joe Biden's vice president, made an embarrassing defense of these allegations against Joe Biden from Tara Reade. So let me show you this clip on CNN, and I'm going to break this down.
As someone who wants to be his vice president, I think it's important that we speak about something that's in the news now. As you know, there is a sexual assault allegation against Joe Biden. The accuser, her name is Tara Reade, tells CNN that the alleged incident happened in 1993 while she was working as an aide in Biden's Senate office. She is claiming that she was delivering Biden a duffel bag and says that Biden had her up against the wall in a corridor on the Hill and violated her with his fingers. Now, CNN has now spoken on the record with her former neighbor, who says Reade told her about the allegation within a few years of the alleged incident. Biden's campaign says untrue, never happened. Is this a credible allegation?
I believe that women deserve to be heard, and I believe that they need to be listened to. But I also believe that those allegations have to be investigated by credible sources. The New York Times did a deep investigation, and they found that the accusation was not credible. I believe Joe Biden. I believe that he is a person who has demonstrated that his love of family, his love of our community has been made perfectly clear through his work as a congressional leader and as an American leader. I know Joe Biden, and I think that he is telling the truth and that this did not happen.
So in 2018, you tweeted it was shameful that Brett Kavanaugh's Supreme Court nomination was being rushed forward and survivors of violence like Christine Blasey Ford deserve to have their voices heard. Are you applying a different standard now?
Not at all. I believe then and I believe now that women deserve to be heard because too often they are not. And Tara Reade deserved to have her story listened to and investigated. What was happening to Christine Blasey Ford was that there was no investigation. There was a rush to move the conversation forward so that no investigation was conducted. And as I said, I believe that those allegations needed to be investigated. And I believe that the New York Times and subsequent reports support what the Biden campaign has said. And I believe Joe Biden.
So you said you've heard her, you've heard enough, you don't believe her, you believe Joe Biden.
No, what I'm saying is that the New York Times investigation of her allegations, the New York Times investigation does not support the accusations against the vice president. I believe the Biden I know, and I think that he will make women proud, that he will make America proud.
Does Joe Biden personally need to address this more directly and publicly?
I believe his campaign has been very clear, and I believe that that is the approach that they intend to take. And I support the approach because, again, we don't want women to ever be afraid to come forward, but we also have to recognize that allegations should be investigated and that those investigations need to be borne out.
What you just saw here is somebody that really, really, really wants to be Joe Biden's vice president. Essentially, right now, the VP the VP spot is for whoever is able to fight against these allegations the best. It's between right now Amy Klobuchar, Stacey Abrams, Kirsten Gillibrand. They've all already come out defending Joe Biden, saying these allegations aren't true. New York Times piece shows it's not true, which is funny because they're all using the exact same talking points that Joe Biden's campaign put out privately that were just leaked publicly by BuzzFeed News. There are other reporting. There is more reporting on the story. And by the way, as I'm going to get to, the New York Times report did not conclude that the allegation wasn't true. It didn't say that at all. Yet, this is what they continue claiming on television. And they are completely ignoring the other reporting, the subsequent reports that have come out. Stacey Abrams there says, I believe the New York Times reporting and subsequent reports have said this allegation is not real. No, actually, it has shown the opposite. So first, let me show you what BuzzFeed News put out. Democrats will have to answer questions about Tara Reade. The Biden campaign has advised them to say her story did not happen. So I will get to some of those talking points that they put out in a minute here. First, I want to get to a piece of this that really shows you how disingenuous Stacey Abrams was being here. Biden's campaign talking points say the Times story served as proof that Reade's allegation did not happen, but the story did not conclude this, nor did it conclude that an assault definitively did happen. The Times reported that 3 former Senate aides, all of whom Reade said she complained to at the time, either did not remember the incident or said that it did not happen. The Times also spoke to former interns who said they did remember Reade suddenly ceasing to oversee them, aligning with Reade's claim that she was pulled from that duty. So this was basically the first actual report of this story in the New York Times. Still, even though they were heavily trying to benefit Joe Biden in the story, they still did not conclude either way what happened. Yet here they are, here Stacey Abrams is on television saying, New York Times said it didn't happen. That's not what the reporting said at all. Now, before I even get to anything else here, the former neighbor that is brought up in that clip, Tara Reade's former neighbor, that corroborates the story that she was told about in the mid-90s, that this happened. That former neighbor is still supporting Joe Biden, said she will vote for Joe Biden. You couldn't have a more credible source here than somebody who is a current Joe Biden supporter saying that, well, I'm still going to vote for Joe Biden, but yes, this did happen. Tara Reade told me about this, and I'm coming out to defend my friend because I don't like seeing her smeared. I mean, that should end it right there. But we have even more. There's reporting from Ryan Grimm of The Intercept. Ryan Grimm helped to break the story against Brett Kavanaugh, the Christine Blasey Ford story against Brett Kavanaugh. Also helped to break this story from Tara Reade against Joe Biden. So you have somebody here, an investigative journalist, simply doing his job, and that reporting is going completely ignored because it doesn't comport to what these people actually want in terms of gaining power within Biden's administration. And look, all they have to do here is be honest. Say you don't care. Say, look, I don't care. The evidence points to this happening. Like, you can say you don't know for sure because no one knows for sure, but the evidence points to this actually happening. But you know what? The other guy's Trump, so Trump is a worse sexual assaulter, I think. So I'm going to vote for Joe Biden. I support Joe Biden. I want to be his vice president. I'm not going to say anything bad about him. I mean, if you just come out and be completely honest, then whatever. But they're purposely trying to act like this did not happen, even though all the evidence points to it happening. Now, let me just show you some of the talking points here. I mean, because Stacey Abrams basically went down the list on the talking points. Here, so just to give you context, talking points obtained by BuzzFeed News are printed below. So points like Biden has been a fierce advocate for women, authoring and fighting to pass the Violence Against Women Act. Again, these are things that Stacey Abrams went into. Here's the bottom. And by the way, this is so disingenuous because this was folded into the crime bill, the 1990s crime bill. And this is actually the only reason Bernie Sanders voted for that crime bill, is because of this. He was completely against the actual crime bill, but because Biden folded this into it in a way to try to get more support for it, it worked in that sense. So this was not the main driver for Joe Biden in the 90s. The crime bill, putting more people in prison, was the main driver for passing the Violence Against Women Act. But anyways, points like this, here's the bottom line. Vice President Joe Biden spent his over 40 years in public life. Again, points made by Stacey Abrams. Biden believes that all women have the right to be heard. Yeah, again, what does that even mean? Have the right to be heard. Yeah, of course you have the right to be heard. That is what free speech is. You have the right to be heard. But what do you believe what they are saying? Are you actually looking seriously at the evidence, at the allegation? Or are you just passing it off and acting like it didn't happen because you want to be vice president? So these just so disingenuous. Anybody chasing power and just completely ignoring any sorts of principles or any sort of ideals that they may have once had, it sets me off. More here. This is another piece of investigative reporting that was not touched on by Stacey Abrams. Business Insider reporter. So this is the guy who broke the story about the neighbor. Business Insider reporter Rich McHugh, an investigative journalist who served as a producer on Ronan Farrow's Harvey Weinstein reporting at NBC News, has identified more people who have corroborated elements of Reade's claim. Those people include a former neighbor of Reade's who said they discussed the assault allegation at the time, and a former colleague who said Reade had told her about more general harassment. So a guy that works with Ronan Farrow on the Harvey Weinstein reporting, he's the guy that is bringing up more evidence against Joe Biden. Yet, if you just listen to Stacey Abrams, you would think, well, I guess there's no credible evidence. There's no proof. All the reporting shows that Biden's innocent. No, does not in fact show that. Stacey Abrams is lying to you. More here. Peter Beinart in The Atlantic wrote this: Biden should release his papers. His senatorial records may contain evidence relevant to Tara Reade's accusation. So he goes on to describe how back in the 90s, Tara Reade said that she launched a formal complaint in the Senate against Joe Biden, and she doesn't have a copy of it, but that should be in Joe Biden's records, yet they are sealed. If he was innocent, maybe he would unseal those records. And of course, you have people coming out, not just Stacey Abrams. Actually, before I even get to this, I'm not sure it was mentioned in the CNN clip, but there's also, as I covered this week, the call from Tara Reade's mother into Larry King Live on CNN back in 1993. Not being too specific, but essentially alleging to what actually happened with Tara Reade and how basically asking Larry King and the panel, what avenues can former staffers, or what avenues do former staffers have when there are certain things that they know about, and they want to get that news out there. So if you don't know what I'm talking about, link above the video to that story. So there's also that. I mean, there is just countless evidence. When you have a freaking Larry King clip of Tara Reade's mother calling into the show, asking about what her daughter should do, doesn't that tell you? Isn't that just another piece of obvious evidence that this actually happened? Now, you also have, look, I don't want to just target Stacey Abrams here. Kirsten Gillibrand was asked today on a conference call about Tara Reade, allegations of assault by Joe Biden. She says, quote, "I stand by Vice President Biden. He's devoted his life to supporting women and has vehemently denied this allegation." Again, just using the Joe Biden talking points. And this is the person, Gillibrand, that sunk Al Franken for much lighter things than what Joe Biden is accused of doing and has actually done on camera as well, in terms of the way he touches people. And I don't have it here, but also Amy Klobuchar has come out and defended Joe Biden as well. Again, all these people looking for the vice president spot. Here, Hannah Trudeau of the Daily Beast tweets out, "We contacted 10 top women's groups about the Tara Reade allegation against Joe Biden, including Emily's List, Planned Parenthood Action Fund, and NARAL Pro-Choice America, among others. None provided comment." None provided comment. This tells you that, look, maybe they didn't get the Joe Biden talking points, but if they're not even willing to go on the record and say anything about this, they have to know the evidence points to it happening. And they're caught in a place right now where, because they always support Democrats, they don't know what to do. Because if they come out and say, oh, it's not real, then that hurts their ability as a group to be taken seriously in terms of actually caring about women's rights. And they want to be with Joe Biden here. Ultimately, the issue is they are going to be pro Joe Biden no matter what. So by them just completely staying silent, there's plausible deniability where they can say, well, I mean, later on they can say, well, we never actually came out and said that it didn't happen. Yeah, because you didn't say anything. Because you don't actually stand up for what you say you believe you stand up for and fight for. All these people. I mean, it's really exposing the addiction to power. Whether it's the groups, whether it's politicians, it's exposing an addiction to power that goes above and beyond their actual desire to fight for anything. Just completely lacking all principles. I want to end on this. This is a great piece in New York Mag, but there's a quote from it here, shared by Vanessa B., saying, "The feminist movement exists to critique power, to identify its abuses and demand its redistribution. Accept that, and you don't serve the political class. Your intention with it. That's uncomfortable. That's inconvenient. That's the point." So this really shows you the position that a lot of these power-hungry politicians are in. Because when it comes to fighting for people, and when it comes to especially the feminist movement and believing women and taking allegations seriously and actually investigating it, it is completely at odds with power. Especially, I mean, Joe Biden is the perfect case. Joe Biden, somebody who has been in the Senate for 40 years. When you have someone like this, an incredibly powerful politician, now the Democratic nominee, and there are people that are essentially trying to get into his inner circle. If the power that they want so badly comes into conflict with their so-called principles, with their so-called fight for the average person, with their so-called fight for women, what wins out in that internal fight that they have shows you who that person is. So we are seeing now, if there was any question before, we are now seeing in front of us what these people actually care about. What Stacey Abrams, what Kirsten Gillibrand, what Amy Klobuchar, what they actually care about. What they care about is attaining power.